And welcome to another episode of Eric Waite Whiskey Studies Live. Tonight's gonna look at Ardbeg Uigeadail versus Laphroaig 10-year-old Sherry Oak finish. But before I get into these, I'm gonna say hello to everybody joining me tonight. Ben Demon Hunter, Kenneth Rothburn, David Belcher, Matthew Renke. Hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Duke McHale, Jesse Page. So last couple of weeks we were looking at Bullmore Distillery. When I did a review of the Laphroaig 10-year-old Sherry Oak finish, excuse me, a couple commenters said, hey, they would like to see, a comparison between Uigeadail, Quaivrecken, and the Laphroaig 10-year-old, since these are, I would say, high quality sherry cask. In fact, one commenter said that he found the Laphroaig 10 comparable to the Quaivrecken. So, hey, tonight was in the mood. Let's do a showdown between these two whiskeys before we go on to the next distillery. The next distillery will be Bunnahabhain. My review of the Bunnahabhain 12 cask strength will be posted this upcoming week. But before getting into that, if you happen to be in the area, I believe tickets are still available. Oh, hold on. There we go. Tomorrow night in San Jose, I will be at 55 South from 5:30 to 7:30 for a Scotch Malt Whisky Society event. It's $75 per SMWS member and $95 per non-member. I will have challenge coins in my pocket. So if you happen to be there, come up and say hello, introduce yourself, and I'll give you one of my challenge coins. Really, really looking forward to that. As you all know, I'm becoming a bigger and bigger fan of the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, as what they have to offer really fills a gap in what's available on the market and what I think I'm really going to want in order to study every distillery in Scotland. So, let me see, get here. Back into the comments. Matthew says he's going to the SMWS in Seattle. Cool. Yeah, so they have like another one down in Los Angeles, I believe. I wish I could go to more of them, but what I'm also hoping to do is not just merely, taste undoubtedly be some fantastic whiskeys, but also meet with some local SMWS members who maybe in the future, we could have meetups. Everybody bring a bottle from SMWS and share what you have in your collection and so on and so forth. I've been wanting to host whiskey events at my house, but it's challenging or can be challenging to meet people and stuff like that because most of my viewers of my Whiskey Tube channel aren't locals. They're all over the country and international. All right, so I'm going to pour myself a little bit of the Uigeadail and a little bit of the 10. I'm going to first try these neat, and then I'm going to put a little bit of water on them, a teaspoon of water on them, and try them that way. And then I'll give you my opinion, my perception of which one I prefer. As you all know, I'm a big Ardbeg fan. Color-wise, these look really, 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 really similar. Actually, I got to say, if you can see that, the Laphroaig actually looks slightly darker. It's got a slight red tinge to it from the sherry, whereas, and again, I don't know how well you can see this, whereas the Uigeadail is lighter. It has more of a sort of a soft lemon color, a slight gold color to it. So the Laphroaig 10 is actually showing more that it has that sherry influence. So let me get into the note. Hey, Bad Axe Bourbon, how you doing, man? Good to see you. I have a bourbon. Well, I don't want to get sidetracked. I have a bourbon or Tennessee whiskey that you got to try. It's probably buried back there. I'll talk to you about it later. We both work at the same location. That it's like 70% ABV or 140 proof. It's a Kentucky. It's a Jack Daniels, a bottle. When the heck did I put that dang thing? Hold on. Now that I talked about it, now I got to show it to you. Where in the hell did I put it? Erik, you're getting distracted. Stay on target. Stay on target. Oh, here we go. We're almost there. All right. This one. This one. You got to come over. You got to try this one. Since bourbon, I know it's a Tennessee whiskey, but legally it's a bourbon. You got to come out and check this one out. All right. All right. Well, we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later. All righty. And anybody, hey, if anybody watching my channel, subscriber, and you happen to be in the area, just drop me a note and come on over and taste some whiskeys. So let me show you the notes on these two whiskeys. So the Ardbeg Uigeadail, aged in sherry cask. Now, it's hard to get specifics or any more detail on the Uigeadail. It's a non-age statement. We aren't told how much time it spends in a sherry cask. You know, is it 10 years and like a 10-year-old and then a couple of years in a sherry cask? Is it 100% in a sherry cask? To me, I kind of don't think it's 100% time in the sherry cask, but I could be wrong. It's non-chill filtered, 54.2% alcohol by volume, and in my neighborhood sells for about $77. The Laphroaig 10 sherry oak finish. Basically, you're really looking at the standard Laphroaig 10-year-old, and then it spends about 12 months in a sherry cask. So it's more than 10 years old because it doesn't spend any time in the sherry cask until after it's had that 10 years. But because they changed casks, whatever. All right. And it's 48% ABV and $76. Now, I know those are local prices, but I search online. You look at Total Wine or some of the other stores that have this available here locally, and the prices are really comparable. So you're looking at two smoky, peaty, Islay, sherry cask influenced whiskeys. The main thing Ardbeg Uigeadail has going for it, it's a higher ABV, 54.2 versus the 48% alcohol by volume. And historically speaking, I've been a bigger fan of Ardbeg than I have of the Laphroaig 10-year-old. I've only recently been having a little bit of problems with Ardbeg because of fermentation, some of the committee releases that the quality isn't there and the price isn't there. But I've already talked about in other live streams. I'm not going to go on and on about that again. My favorite Laphroaig is actually the triple wood. The triple wood I think is the best, and it sells for, you can still get it for under $100. Now, this is a study channel, so we got to have a little quiz tonight. But I've only got 5 questions, so give these a little time to breathe. Right now, I would say on the nose, the 10-year-old has much more of an obvious sherry note. The dried dark black fruit notes, fig, dates, raisins. It has more of a spice to it. The Ardbeg is showing more of the underlying fruit characteristics of that lemon, lime, and so forth. Pretty comparable in terms of the level of smoke and peat. The Ardbeg is come across as much more of a chocolate covered raisin with a little bit of smoke and peat. Whereas the Laphroaig 10-year-old is sort of a very acutely sharp, dried black fruit note with a lot of spice to it. The biggest thing that's coming out is different between these two, just on the nose, we're just getting the nose, is that intense peaty character to it. I'm going to take a quick little sip, and then we'll get into our quiz. Of course, Corey Vrecken, bigger ABV, a little bit more of a nip. This, of course, this is the first sip of the night. It's sweet. Love the development. I recently did best of Ardbeg core range. My favorite is probably Corey Vrecken. Very, very close second is the Uigeadail, and then third, the 10-year-old. chocolate covered raisins. The smoke is really well integrated. A little bit of a barbecue character there. Chocolate covered raisins. Finish is dry, and it has a nice wafty smokiness to it. Drink a little bit of water. The Ardbeg has a rounder, softer, creamier mouthfeel. The Laphroaig 10, take another one. Slightly thinner, not quite as soft and round and smooth, and it's spicier on the finish. I want to say, I actually got to say, I like the Laphroaig 10 sherry oak finish better now than I did the last time I approached it. I said before, this is a whiskey. They both do. They both need some air. They both need some aeration. But the Laphroaig 10 sherry oak finish is getting better and better the more it has some air to it. Now, this is also a whiskey that I know, from previous experience, needs some water added to it. So I'm going to add a little bit of water. Whiskey Straight Ale. Hey, how you doing? All the way from Ireland. How you doing, man? Thanks for tuning in. If you guys aren't familiar with Whiskey Straight Ale, check out his channel. He's way over in Ireland, so he's got to be 8 hours ahead, which means it's probably, I'm guessing, about 3:15 in the morning where he's at. But let me add a little bit of water. Then we'll do the quiz. And the amount of time that this thing needs with the water into it, by the time I'm done with the quiz, should be ready. Alrighty. Again, it's a short quiz, not too difficult, but here we go. Oops. Question number 1. Founded in 1779, it is the oldest distillery on Islay. A, Ardbeg. B, Bowmore or Bowmore or Bowmore, depending how you want to pronounce it. C, Kalila, or D, Laphroaig. So what is the oldest distillery on Islay, founded in 1779? And Matthew says B. DJ Cami says B. Fraser says B. Ben Demon Hunter says B. Yo Jimbo 85610. That's quite a name you got there. It says B. Tamar says, I'm old. All right. And the answer is B. Bowmore. Ding, 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 ding. Most people got it right. All right. Next question. What Islay distillery was founded by David Simpson? A, Ardbeg. B, Bowmore. C, Kalila. Or D, Laphroaig? What distillery, Islay distillery, was founded by David Simpson? Ardbeg, Bowmore, Kalila, or Laphroaig? And in case you didn't guess, that's a map of Kalila off to the, a map of Islay off to the lower right-hand corner there. Rafael Montilla says B. So what distillery was founded by David Simpson? Do 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 do. Dun 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 dun. Yo Jim's Bow says C. Dun 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 dun. And the answer is B. Bowmore. David Simpson founded Bowmore Distillery. All righty. We got a theme going on here. Just letting you know. Oops. Question 3. What Islay distillery was taken over by Suntory in 19... Whatever. How? I'm sorry. I got to remove my logo. Hold on. My logo's in the way. Actually, I don't know if I can do that now. Oh, crud. Brand. Oh, here we go. There we go. 1994. I had to get my logo out of the way. So, what Islay Distillery was taken over by Suntory in 1994? A. Ardbeg, B. Bowmore, C. Kalila, or D. Laphroaig? David Belcher says B. Fraser says B. Ben says B. Duke says B. All right. And the answer is B. Bowmore. Bowmore was taken over by Suntory in 1994. Before that, it was Bowmore Morrison, or Morrison Bowmore. Next question. What Islay distillery has the lowest ABVs in their core range? A. Ardbeg, B. Bowmore, C. Kalila, or D. Laphroaig? What Islay distillery has the lowest ABV in their corn range? In their corn range. In their core range. What distillery has the lowest ABVs in their core range? Not the corn range. Tom is asking if I've tried the Sea Dragon bottle from Bowmore. No. It was in my notes in the history of Bowmore, but no. Whiskey Straight Out says B. Yeah, Ricardo says none of these contain corn. That is correct. .com not contain corn. Nope. FN Bowmore. Yes, FN Bowmore. All right. And the answer is Bowmore. There you go. Yes, the answer is FN Bowmore. And the final question. What distillery is located in the capital city of Islay? What distillery is located in the capital city of Islay? Is it A. Ardbeg, B. Bowmore, C. Kalila, or D. Laphroaig? What distillery is located in the capital city of Islay? Thank you, Tom. Duke says B. Fraser says B. Whiskey Out says B. And the answer is B. So, because the last 2 weeks I covered Bowmore, I did the Scotch Malt Whisky Society 17-year-old Bowmore, and I did the 21-year-old Aston Martin Bowmore, and I did a head-to-head comparison between Douglas Lang. Is it Douglas Lang? No, Douglas Lang and the Scotch Malt Whisky Society Bowmore, the 21-year-old. I already had a couple of weeks of nothing Bowmore. So I didn't want to do Bowmore for this weekend, for the Saturday, for the live stream. In addition to, there were requests of seeing the head-to-head comparison between these, but we still needed to do the quiz for academic purposes. So we had a Bowmore quiz in which every answer is Bowmore. All right, not too difficult. The purpose of the quiz here is to refresh our memories of what I already covered in a previous video. Try to not make them too difficult. The point isn't to stump you, but just hit some of the most important points about the distillery. A lot of distilleries, they change hands like 10 times. So the odds of you remembering every single owner is kind of odd. So I think you should know who founded it and who the current owner is, Suntory. Understand the core range, when they were founded, and so forth. And so that's sort of the main things I'm hitting on. My videos are focusing most on the history aspect of the distilleries. I've not spent a lot of time. I have with some videos, not with others, on the core range. It's also important to know the core range as much as you can for the various distilleries in order to understand the distilleries. And I actually went over the core range for Bowmore in our last live stream. All right. Now let's get back into these whiskeys. If you have these two whiskeys, I invite you to pour yourself a wee dram of each and taste along with me. If you're watching on the replay and you have these, try them side by side and let me know down below in the comments down below what you prefer between these two whiskeys. So I don't believe in swirling or swishing whiskeys. I see how whiskey tubers do that. When you do that, you exaggerate the alcohol. You drink however you want. My recommendation is not to swirl it. It's not freaking wine. You swirl wine in order to get wine up on the upper part of a glass, and then as the alcohol begins to sort of separate from the other components of the wine, the glass essentially starts to act like a carburetor in this space right here, and so to get more of the aromas. Spirits, you don't need to do that. If you study with the Wine and Spirit Educational Trust, you'll know. Don't do that. Now you can do whatever the hell it is you want, but I don't recommend doing that. Instead of sort of exaggerating the alcohol on a spirit, particularly whiskey, which is what that we're doing heavy swirling, all that shit. That's what that does. Just give it a nice angle turn, just like that. See, the Ardbeg is much more of a milk chocolate character. The Laphroaig is much more of a dark chocolate character. So if you prefer dark chocolate over a milk chocolate, you might like the Laphroaig 10. The Laphroaig 10 has much more of a tar note, whereas the Ardbeg is much more of a wafting campfire note. The Laphroaig 10, underneath it, it does have that York's peppermint patty mint character. That's sort of, I think, a classic character of the Laphroaig 10-year-old. The Ardbeg 10 has much more of a softer lemon and lime character to it. The Ardbeg, not Ardbeg Corryvreckan. Now, if I said Ardbeg 10, that's a slip. The Corryvreckan, the earthy character of Ardbeg, and it's definitely here. It's more of a clay mud. If you ever took wet clay, put it on the spinning wheel, and you got it with your hands, and you're shaping a vase or whatever it is you're making with the clay, and you kind of get the aroma of it, it's kind of like that. Or if you ever got mudding in a truck, and maybe your truck got stuck, and you're trying to push it out, and someone else is inside the truck, and the wheels are spinning, you can kind of get the aroma of the mud as the wheels are spinning. Come up with your own analogy or whatever. It's kind of like that. I would say both have a saltiness character to it. I would say Laphroaig probably just a little bit has more of a briny character to it. Again, this is with a teaspoon of water. Check the comments here. Have you considered doing a wine basics for whiskey drinkers live stream? I would do it in person. I wouldn't do it as a live stream necessarily. And actually, I'm considering writing a book on that very subject. I don't think a whole lot of people would watch it. And I think it'd be more beneficial. It would work better if you're actually tasting. Talking about it isn't going to help much. I think you actually have to be there and tasting. I've done on my channel a sharing Cherry Cask Finished Whiskey series, and I've done a couple classes on it to really appreciate the wine and what a wine cask finishes. You gotta taste it. Watching a video, I don't think it's gonna help you all that much. Eric, wait, cheers to you. Finally back on a live stream. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Oogie, I like the Ardbeg distillate in a general better than Laphroaig. Yeah, it's sort of like the movie Ghost. Man, what is the song that they plays in the background of that? I can't remember. Yeah, Patrick Swayze and what's her name? Yeah, anyway. So the thing is, I think in terms of the aromas and flavors, there's a big part of it that is personal preference. Someone likes the heavier, spicy character of the Laphroaig 10. Someone likes more of the milk chocolate character of the Corryvreckan. Someone likes the mouthfeel more of the Corryvreckan. Someone likes the maybe more intensely sherry character of the Laphroaig 10 Sherry Cask. It's those things are preference issues. Now, quality, and now some people think quality is completely subjective, and I disagree. Someone can say, that's not my style of music, but I can recognize they are very good musicians. That's not my style of music, but that person's a very good singer. That's not my style of whiskey, but I can tell that's well made. If it has a lot of different flavors to it, if it has a nice development and flavors to it, if it has a nice long finish, if it structurally is good, if it has a nice mouthfeel to it, a mouth coating feel to it. Even you can say, even though that's my particular style of whiskey, I could tell, or I prefer some other style, I can see that's still a quality whiskey. And some people think, well, no, it's completely subjective. Trust me. If you take 10 whiskey lovers who like peated whiskeys, and I give them all, a Laphroaig 10-year-old, or give them a Laphroaig Dark Cove versus, I don't know, a Kalila 8-year-old or something, they're all going to go with the Dark Cove. So preferences are subjective, but there is a qualitative objectivity to a whiskey, right? I'm sorry, someone who plays the violin for the San Francisco Symphony or the London Philharmonic is going to be better than a freshman in high school. It just is. All right, enough of that. On the palate, nice sweetness, even with the water. The 1 teaspoon of water hasn't radically changed the Corey Vrecken. I like the texture. I like the development. Now, obviously, I have to recognize and say, hey, historically, previously, I have a prejudice towards Ardbeg, particularly the Corey range. I've been for a long time, been a bigger fan of Ardbeg. Ardbeg is sort of, in terms of peaty whiskeys, the Ardbeg 10 in particular, it was sort of a first love in terms of peated whiskeys. So you have to just be aware of it. I would say it's showing a wee bit of youth, but not in terms of like a new make character youth. So I don't like it when a whiskey is showing the new make character is showing through, that it just needs to spend more time in a cask. But I like when a whiskey can have some youthfulness, that what it provides is a freshness to a whiskey. And I think the Corey Vrecken has that. All right. In case you're tuning in late, Ardbeg Uigeadail. Wow. Laphroaig 10. Wow. I got to tell you, I'm liking the Laphroaig 10 Sherry Oak Cask more now than I did when I reviewed it and when I did a live stream. We're talking a few more weeks. It's now about right here. We're talking a few more weeks of it being open, and we're talking adding water. When you add a little bit of water to it, it helps the various flavors become much more harmonious. They're not so tight and narrow, just kind of going up the middle of the palate, but they become much more mouth-filling. I would say it's becoming a little bit more savory. It's heading more into a barbecue character to it, and I like that. My 5 S's are, I like sweet, savory, smoky, salty, and savory. Oh, and cherried, throwing cherried in there. So I actually, this is kind of making it challenging because I'm liking it more now than I did before. I'm much more impressed with it now, and it's better than what I was expecting. Well, the other thing I have to admit is, I don't know if you can see that, but this is down the hair. Potentially, the Corey may be heading over the hill in terms of how much oxygen. This is my second bottle of Corey. I've gone through 6 bottles over the last 6 years. Ardbeg 10-year-old. I've gone through 2 Corey and this is coming to the bottom of my second bottle of Uigeadail. It's going to be time for a new one. All right, go back to the Laphroaig. It has like one particular note to it, an extra note to it, particularly about 3/4 of the way back, that's giving it an edge. It's that savory barbecue note. Then when adding a little bit of water, and I wish that was showing up earlier in the bottle when I had first, neck pour and it was that around the shoulder. It's showing really, really, really nice. So in terms of, the way I measure whiskey, the range of flavors, the development of flavors from front, middle, and into the finish, and length of finish. Most of my points when I score a whiskey has more to do with structure. When we're talking about mouthfeel, development, and all that, that structure has more to do with that than what particular aromas I have or what particular flavors I have. The Laphroaig 10 is coming across more complex, more savory than what it had before. The Ardbeg Uigeadail. By the way, I have to go back and watch this. If I've called this a 10, if I've called this Corey, if I've called this, just mixing up my terms, the Uigeadail. The Laphroaig 10 Sherry Cask at this point is gaining an edge. I actually hate to say that. I was actually going into this expecting that I would like the Corey. Excuse me. I almost did it again. It's like when you're talking to Scott and Bart. Scott says Demis and he calls, or I'm talking to Scott and I call him Bart. I'm kind of doing the same thing. I like the mouthfeel of the Uigeadail. I like the mouthfeel of the Uigeadail more than I do the Laphroaig 10. I'm liking 3/4 of the way back, the way in which the Laphroaig 10-year-old comes across. I like that barbecue note that's showing up about 3/4 of the way back. Anyone down that Erik has called the Oogie Corey. Oops, stuff happens. Well, I got to tell you, my mom, she had 5 sons: David, Christopher, Adam, me, Erik. That's Erik. I was number 4, and then my younger brother Joshua. And my mother was fairly short. She was 4'11". She shrunk down to about 4'9", and she would need help with something in the kitchen, get some out of the cabinet. And particularly as she got older, she might call me Adam. She might call me Chris. She might call me, Josh or David. She'd get our names mixed up. And that's my mom. And that's after decades. So if my mom can, goof up the names of her sons and get away with, I can goof up the names of a couple of whiskeys. Buenas noches or buenos dias. New drinking game. Drink Oogie when Erik says. Oh, this one I'm saying. Buenas noches, buenos dias, from whatever time of day it is over there at 60 hertz. Yeah, drink Oogie when Erik says Corey and vice versa. No, you have to have what it is you get a bottle of the Oogie, you get a bottle of Corey, and if I call it a Corey, you have to drink Corey. If I call it Uigeadail, you have to drink the Uigeadail. That. Oh man. Uh, anyway, probably around 10 times now. Hey, it's late in the day. It's late in the day. It happens. At least I didn't call it this one Laphroaig, and I didn't call this one Ardbeg. Well, so honestly, I was going into this thinking, well, this will be, I'm gonna like the Corey Brecken more. And I was not expecting the Laphroaig 10 Sherry Cask to compete with the Uigeadail. Did I just do it again with the Uigeadail? I should just leave out the word Uigeadail. Now, the funny thing is, Corey Brecken, Scott is Uigeadail, and Bart is, Scott is Uigeadail, and Bart is Corey Brecken. So now what I'm curious is, how would the Laphroaig 10 do against the Corey Brecken? Now, we're talking different casks. The Corey Brecken is an American oak and French oak, but the Corey Brecken has more of a spice character to it than the Uigeadail does. So on the one hand, it's almost as if the Laphroaig 10 has some attributes of the Uigeadail and some attributes of the Corey Brecken. One more time. Now I'm concentrating. This is serious work here. Now I'm thinking real hard. Wow. Wow. I wish I could redo my review of the Laphroaig 10. Now I wish I could redo it because it's jumped up a couple points because of that barbecue note that's showing up on the back end that it didn't previously experience. And I kind of feel bad that I think my review didn't give it quite the justice that it deserved. If I could only have one, what would I choose? I'm probably going to go with the Uigeadail. Why? So one of the things I wish more of my fellow whiskey tubers would do, one, explain their scores, why they give it what they give it, and why they prefer it. In my videos, what I try to do is say, let's say I give a whiskey 88 points, and then I'll say, to get it over 90, this is what it would need. And it's usually what's holding it back is a lack of transition and development or a lack of length of finish. And both of these, I tell you what, I'm going to chicken out. I'm going to say it's a tie. I'm actually having quite the existential moment here. I like the mouthfeel of the Corey Brecken. I like the sweetness of the Corey Brecken. I like the body of the Corey Brecken. I just did it again. I just did it again. I meant Uigeadail. I like the mouthfeel of the Uigeadail. I got Corey Brecken on my. I just did it again. That's not intentional. I like the mouthfeel of the Uigeadail. I like the creaminess of the Uigeadail. I like the sweetness of the Uigeadail. I like the smoke and peat character of the Uigeadail. Uigeadail. Okay, but I like that savory note. Because I like a savory note because it has a sweetness up front. Sweet and savory make a really enjoyable counterbalance. Think about like a barbecue. I'm more of a barbecue rub person than I am a sauce because a barbecue rub is more is friendlier with wines. A sauce doesn't really work with wines. It tends to drown out a wine. I'm not a beer drinker, so I tend to prefer wine with with a barbecue, with a tri-tip, with a spice rub, brown sugar, salt, all your herbs and spices and all that. I just prefer a dry rub over a wet sauce. And the Laphroaig is reminding me of a dry rub character to it. And I'm loving that aspect of it. So it's kind of like this one's for dinner and this one's for dessert. Essentially, is what it comes down to. This is the meat with the dry rub on it, and then this is the chocolate covered raisins for dessert. Essentially, what it comes down to. Both of them are, I'm solid 90 to 92 points. I think the Laphroaig 10 at this point has a better development and a better finish, but I think the Uigeadail has it better up front. You need to drink a glass of Uigeadail. Tell you what, I'm going to do just for the heck of it, for science. I'm going to pour myself a little bit of the Corey Reckon, just for science, of course. Let me grab it real quick. Give me a second. Alrighty. Since I've mentioned it a gazillion times. Dang it. I'm fighting with the stupid box. All right. Since I've mentioned it, I got to try it. Just for shits and giggles. For science. For academic purposes. By the way, this bottle of Corey Reckon is about right here. About the same level as my Uigeadail. For science. Yes. For science. About the same color as the Uigeadail. There are days in which I would prefer Uigeadail over Corey Reckon, but generally I tend to prefer Corey Reckon over the Uigeadail. Yeah. To the Uigeadail, 3/4 of the way back. So think front, entry, middle, mid palate, and the 3/4 of the way back is just before you swallow, sort of the back of the palate. The Corey Reckon, now I can say Corey Reckon and actually refer to Corey Reckon. The Corey Reckon has some similarities to the spice character of the Laphroaig. Now, it doesn't have the dried black fruit notes that these two whiskeys have. The particularly raisins, not figs, not dates. I would say mostly raisins, chocolate covered raisins character. But this is sort of like definitely in between, in between the two. It has attributes of the Laphroaig 10 sherry cask. Now, which would I prefer between the three of these? The Corey Reckon. Yeah, I'd go with the Corey Reckon. But sometimes I am very much mood driven in terms of whiskeys, which is affected by climate, by weather, time of the year, which previously had, so forth. The advantage, I now living in Half Moon Bay. I mean, hey Siri, what's the weather like in Half Moon Bay?
It's currently cloudy and 61 degrees in Half Moon Bay. Today's high will be 63 degrees, and the low will be 52 degrees.
Hey Siri, how's the weather in Islay?
It's currently clear and 70 degrees in Islay, Malta. Today's high will be 79 degrees, and the low will be 70 degrees.
It's actually warmer on Islay than it is here in Half Moon Bay. It's a little warmer and clearer weather in Islay than it is in Half Moon Bay. But usually, I've been posting on Facebook pictures of the weather between where I live, Half Moon Bay, and Islay, and they're really, 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 really close. I would say we tend to get more sunshine in the afternoon, but other than that, very, very similar. Living here puts me more in the mood for having peated whiskeys. I like peated whiskeys more in colder weather. In hotter weather, I tend to I like bourbon and a high ABV bourbon on ice. And I can choose anything. So that's one of the reasons I love living here is now, it used to be summertime, particularly when I lived up near Sacramento, was 115 degrees or something, 100 to 115 degrees, and just unbelievably hot. Summertime, I'm just not in the mood for peated whiskeys. So living here, I'm much more in the mood, which means now I can enjoy more having peated whiskeys 365 days a year. Absolutely fantastic. So, all righty. So I know to call it a draw can seem like, oh, come on, just pick one. Just pick one. Pick a favorite. I was expecting the Uigeadail. I was expecting Uigeadail to win. I thought it'd be a narrow margin, but I'm actually preferring. It's that finish. If this was still tasting the way it was as when I reviewed it, it would be hands down with the Uigeadail. With the Uigeadail. Alrighty, but again, seriously, these are great. These are actually great whiskeys. If you've not had either of these, I'll say the Uigeadail is going to be easier to get than the Laphroaig 10 sherry cask. This is probably much more of a limited release, whereas the Uigeadail is a core range. So if I had to choose between buying one or the other, given the limited availability of the sherry oak, I would probably say that are limited funds. And the prices you saw there were fairly similar. Of course, prices vary depending on where you live. Based on availability, I would probably, if you only had $80 to spend or so, I would probably buy the Laphroaig 10 sherry cask, knowing that later on, the Corvrecken, excuse me, I did it again, the Uigeadail, sorry, I'm not drunk either. I'm just getting old, I guess. Knowing that the Uigeadail would be still available and it's more widely available. That would probably be the decision in terms of buying them. Qualitatively, if you have some patience with the sherry cask, the Laphroaig 10 sherry cask, it's really, really quite nice. I would say my allergy situation has improved like 90%. So for those who don't know, I was living out in the Sonoma wine country, among the vineyards and golf courses. It was lovely. I really miss living there, but my allergies were killing me up there. So I really, really like this. All right. Wow. Alrighty. So, I'll probably give it scores 90 to 92, 90, now 90, 92. I think I give it like 88 to 89 points when I originally reviewed it. But then now that it has that savory note, that adds another layer of complexity and better development because it kicks in about 3/4 of the way back and into the finish. Both have similar in terms of length of finish. That is what's kicked us up a couple points. The Corvrecken has the punch of the Uigeadail. It has the similar spice of the Laphroaig. And so the Corvrecken has just a little bit of an edge for me over the Uigeadail in terms of development because of the way that spice kicks in the back. They both start as sweet, Uigeadail and Corvrecken, but it's that little extra spice on the back end that gives me the edge of the Corvrecken. But again, maybe after dinner, maybe you're not in the mood for spice, maybe you had a spicy meal, and so you're not in the mood for more spice. Whatever. I can definitely see where the Uigeadail is going to have those times which you're going to prefer that over another. All righty. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, man, I'm telling you straight up right now that my review will be posting next week. The Bunnahabhain 12 cask strength, I know it's hard to get, is unfreaking believable. It is superb. I'm just giving a heads up to my reviews. I'll be posting this next week. It will be probably be within my top 10 for 2022. And so my review will be coming this next week. And next Saturday during the live stream, we'll be having a little quiz and we'll be talking about Bunnahabhain Distillery, which has now probably become my favorite Islay distillery. Islay distillery. Just love Bunnahabhain. Alrighty, so that's it for this live stream. Hope everyone has a great time for the rest of the weekend. Don't drink and drive. Behave yourself. We're now heading into the holidays, cooler weather. During the summertime, I think whiskey tubers tend to back off in terms of how much they do in live streams. A lot more people are out playing out in the sun because they have longer days. Now the days get shorter. It gets colder. We start drinking more whiskey, start spending more time indoors and all that. So good time of the year for whiskey tubers as we head into this. Alrighty, let's head out with a little bit of rock and roll. Slanjiva.